Here today on the Coach's Corner podcast, we're going to talk a lot about the Ronda Rousey fight and seeing her fall in a shocking defeat in one of the biggest upsets in UFC history and sports history, with Ronda Rousey falling to Holly Helm and losing the championship belt. Peyton Manning being benched for Brock Osweiler in Denver, and the Bengals finally dropped their undefeated streak to the Houston Texans this past week on Monday Night Football. We talk about that and all much more here on the Coach's Corner podcast. It's going to be a great lineup for the show. Obviously, the Golden State Warriors are undefeated. I'm going to talk about what I spoke on air to Coach Les of the Coach Les Show on Fox Sports, Caliwood Radio today regarding the Denver Broncos situation with Peyton Manning. And we're going to provide a lot of analysis on that as well. Golden State's playing phenomenal. Ronda Rousey lost the belt. Holly Helm's the new champion. And what a lot of people are saying, she's now the people's champion. The evolution of Ronda Rousey losing and what that means for her career. Is her career going to be forever defined as her being knocked out in the second round to Holly Helm, a girl who was once very, very dominant, who looked very dominant in her previous fights and just completely looked like she just got manhandled in this last fight. And we're going to talk about Conor McGregor and the upcoming UFC match between him and Jose Aldo for the championship in a highly anticipated matchup that we've all been looking forward to seeing. We're going to talk about that and much more here on the Coach's Corner podcast. This is the Coach's Corner podcast, hosted live on CodyRourke18.com. And we're back here for the Coach's Corner podcast. Just want to take a quick couple of moments to talk about something that changed my life, and it is the way I shave. And, with me, every single month that I ran out, my razor blade got a little dull, I'd go to the store, and I'd see that each time I went to the store, the cost for a razor blade would be 10 times higher. The price would increase from $15 to $17, and now razor blades on the store shelf at places like Walmart, City Market, King Supers, and Kmart, things like that, they're now $21 to $25 for a razor blade and for a handle, and that's just too unrealistic. In today's economy, we need to save money. So with that, I made a really great life-changing move, and I made the switch from a regular razor blade to the Dollar Shave Club, where for just under $4 a month, even $2 a month, it depends on the plan that you choose, Dollar Shave Club will send you a high-quality razor blade and a handle with 4 or 5 blades in the package and a free sample of the shave butter for just under $4 a month. And with me, my plan, I choose to go with the $18 plan per month because what I have included, you have to include the $3 shipping charge. However, I choose the best razor blade that they have. It's the Executive, and they send me 6 blades with that every single month, and I have the shave butter, which I lather onto my skin before I shave, and it makes it to where I can shave very well. I don't miss any spots, and it's comfortable. My skin's feeling great afterwards. It doesn't become irritated. So the shave butter and the high quality razor blade, and I get all that delivered to my door for just under $20 a month, for what I would normally be paying at the store, $25 a month just for a razor blade and a handle, just one. So make the switch to Dollar Shave Club and tell them I sent you. Go to dollarshaveclub.com and try your first month. Try it for a month. Tell me what you think. Hit us up at the Coach's Corner podcast at Twitter at Coach's Co Podcast, and I promise you this is a great way to save money and to save time and to not have to deal with people on Sundays at Walmart or even deal with any lines when they can deliver it right to your front door every single month. And you have 6 blades, 5 blades. It varies within your package. They send you multiple blades per month and a handle, so you get something new every single month, and it's very great. It's a high quality shave. I feel great afterwards. My skin feels great. I don't deal with shave irritation because I am taken care of by those folks at Dollar Shave Club. So the Coach's Corner podcast is a proud sponsor and representative and user of the Dollar Shave Club. So today we got a crazy lineup for you. As we mentioned in the beginning of the show, we're going to talk a lot about Ronda Rousey and her shocking defeat to Holly Helm in UFC, losing the title belt. Obviously, Peyton Manning being injured and not starting is a very big concern in the sports world, and probably one of the most talked about topics here on the sports world and sports radio throughout the week. Brock Osweiler will be starting in place of him against Chicago. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the Golden State Warriors' impressive 14-0 start, undefeated, and they look unstoppable. We're going to talk about, unfortunately, an accusation where J.R. Smith of the Cleveland Cavaliers reportedly choked a teenager in New York City. We're going to talk about that. Conor McGregor takes on Jose Aldo in the next UFC event here in a couple weeks, and that's going to be a very, very exciting fight that I'm actually looking really forward to seeing. We wanted to see it a couple months ago, but Jose Aldo had to pull out due to a broken rib, and Conor McGregor is entertainment in and of itself. He's the definition of entertainment. He talks a big game, but I truly believe he backs it up, so it's going to be very exciting to see that fight. The Bengals dropped their undefeated record to the Houston Texans, and Houston Texans are now 4-4, and the Bengals are 8-1. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about Julian Edelman of the New England Patriots going down with a foot injury, which required him to have surgery, and how long will he be out for the New England Patriots? We talk about all that and much more here. But before that, I want to touch base on something very special and close to me. And it's my alma mater where I played, a place where I grew up a majority of my life is in Coos Bay, Oregon. And if you don't know, you're going to find out tomorrow on College Game Day. There's going to be a segment run where it's called the Coos Bay Connection. And Oregon Ducks head coach Mark Helfrich went to Marshfield High School, the high school that I played football at, the high school I went to school at. He went to Marshfield as a student. He played. He was the quarterback back in the day. And he's the head coach of the University of Oregon. They're going to talk about the connection between Steve Prefontaine. You're going to have my former coach Kent Weigel. He's going to be featured in the segment. My former coach Floyd Montiel. Guys who were my coaches when I was in high school. They're going to be on the segment there with Coach Helfrich, and I had a great privilege of learning a little bit more about football under Coach Helfrich's father, who passed away a few years ago, my senior year, and him and Chip Kelly, they came down to Coos Bay, Oregon, Marshfield High School, and they honored him in a ceremony in a funeral there for Mark's dad, Big Mike, down there at Marshfield High School, and it was a very great experience. And so very, very exciting to see the Coos Bay connection on a College Game Day tomorrow morning. While for ESPN, while College Game Days in Ohio State for a huge game that they have against Michigan State, and Oregon takes on USC in a Pac-12 matchup. It's going to be a very good matchup. Obviously, I have a lot of great ties to Oregon because of former Coach Helfrich, former Marshfield Pirate, head coaching the Oregon Ducks, predecessing, stepping up when Chip Kelly left the Oregon Ducks, and Mark Helfrich has done a tremendous job with the program. Started off the season kind of, a slow start, but, the Oregon Ducks have gotten to a great position, 7-3 on the year, coming off a national championship appearance where they fell to Ohio State. It's a great symbol for the Oregon Ducks program for the future and for right now. So I'm very excited to see the game day, the Coos Bay connection tomorrow on ESPN College Game Day. So set your DVR, tune into it, and kind of get a little glimpse behind the town that I grew up in, the place where I played high school football at. They're going to talk a lot about that and much more on ESPN College Game Day tomorrow. So don't miss out on that. So we're going to talk about our first key point, and I ordered the Ronda Rousey fight last weekend, and I'm a big Ronda Rousey fan. I really like what she represents as a woman. I believe she empowers women to have a voice, especially those who have suffered against domestic violence. However, there have been, obviously recent allegations and accusations that she's been dating somebody who is a domestic, has a history of domestic violence and abuse, and things like that. So she's kind of came under fire for that. A lot of her character's been, kind of, chipped for that. So she took on Holly Helm, who was 9-0 at the time. Ronda Rousey was 12-0. And this was a fight where you really did not know what was going to happen, because Holly Helm had such a very smart and strategic style of fighting. Obviously a world-renowned kickboxer and boxer. And Ronda Rousey, very strong, can bull rush and, overwhelm her opponents with her speed and her strength. This fight had a lot of hype running up to it. There was a lot of trash talk before the fight, the night before, during the stare-off. They kind of got a little heated incident. So, obviously Ronda Rousey came out to the ring very, passionate and fiery. She had that scary look on her face that she always does when she comes to the ring. And, Bruce Buffer, announces it's time. Obviously the most exciting part of a UFC fight is the main event, where Bruce Buffer gets really into it as an announcer. But so when they were asked to touch gloves, Ronda Rousey did not touch gloves with Holly Helm, in which what really shocked me, because that just doesn't seem like Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey did not seem like herself at all that night, and her strategy really did not work. And what she usually does to opponents is, once the bell rings and the match starts, she will run at her opponents and just try to grapple them and then throw them on the ground or strike them. And for Ronda, this case, that just didn't work out. She tried that, and she got popped in the face several times. Pretty big shots too by Holly Helm, who used her speed and her just her smarts and her boxing prowess to her advantage against Ronda Rousey, who a lot of people coined as probably the greatest fighter of all time, women fighter in the UFC. However, she really this was a very, very lopsided night for Ronda Rousey, and Holly Helm caught her with several shots. You could tell that Ronda Rousey began getting frustrated as soon as she could not take her to the ground. She had her kind of had her body, she had her grappled, but Holly Helm was just way too fast, and she counteracted with a punch, and she really rocked Ronda a few times in the first round. Second round started, it was more of the same. She began to get frustrated. She tried it again. She missed and fell to the ground, and that's when Holly Helm capitalized, and she really she hit her good, and then she clocked her right in the kind of the head and neck area with a huge kick, a powerful kick that just immediately dropped Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey got knocked out and then got hit several times on the ground. Herb Dean called it, and we saw Ronda Rousey, one of the most dominant fighters we've ever seen in the history of the UFC and women's sports, get absolutely annihilated by Holly Helm, who really was just kind of this underdog, under the radar, undefeated, and she got her chance, and she used her speed, she used her smarts and her boxing background to her advantage, and it sparked another debate regarding if boxing and MMA, which one's better. Obviously it looks like right now the technique of boxing trumps the technique of MMA, but both are very different games. But obviously Ronda Rousey really took a beating. She got bloodied up in the first round, and the UFC has since medically suspended her for 6 months due to the injuries that she suffered from that kick. So obviously concussion, whiplash, things like that. They suspend her from fighting for 6 months. That could always be cleared here in a while, and we have to beg. The question is, will she get a rematch? I do believe she does, but do you think Holly Helm's going to wait 6 months to fight? No, I don't think so. I think they're going to get another fight lined up. Holly Helm will take on whoever. If Holly Helm wins, then the next match, when she's done and ready, will be Ronda. And if Holly Helm loses, then obviously Ronda will get the next fight whenever she's cleared, and then it'll be Holly Helm, versus whoever wins that fight. So that's my prediction right now. As a Ronda Rousey fan, it was very shocking to see that. You didn't really expect to see that. You didn't expect her to come into that fight and get dominated and just absolutely demolish the way that she did. It was very shocking, to say the least, and it took me a day to process. Being there and watching the fight. My girlfriend's sister's boyfriend said, he's like, "What if she gets knocked out this fight?" Before the fight even started, and I was like, "Yeah, no," because obviously you didn't imagine that with Ronda Rousey. And then when I started seeing Ronda Rousey try to rush, and then she get popped because obviously Holly Helm's reach was very advantageous to her. She used that to her her liking, and unfortunately for Ronda Rousey, it rocked her, and that's when those thoughts began creeping into my head, like, okay, this is the part where Ronda Rousey's gonna fall. And as soon as I saw that head kick in the second round and I saw her fall to the ground and I heard, Joe Rogan, the announcers, go, "It's all over," they were shocked. They were as shocked as I was. The whole world was shocked. Twitter was blowing up. You should have seen it. All the holy shits that I saw on my timeline, I can't believe she lost and things like that. And, it's life. No one's untouchable. Obviously, when we look at Buster Douglas, when he got Mike Tyson, it was one of the biggest upsets in the world, and this is up there. This is probably one of the biggest upsets in UFC history at this point in time that we've seen in such a long time. She'll get the rematch, obviously. She'll be back. I don't think her career's over. She's going to take a break. She's going to film a movie, and she's going to get better. She's going to get in a better place of mind. Obviously, losing a fight like this is hard to recover from mentally. There's a lot of obstacles. But I do believe that Ronda Rousey will be back. She will be better than ever. She will learn, and she'll get another opportunity for a rematch, and I think she'll be ready this time. So, that's the only hope that we can have regarding the situation. And so on the UFC front, the next UFC fight features a very, very prolific matchup between Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo, which, in my opinion, we should have saw a couple months ago, but during training, Jose Aldo broke a rib, and so he had to pull out from the fight. So Conor McGregor ended up fighting Chad Mendes and absolutely demolished him. And I don't know if you've seen it, but on Facebook, social media, this video has been circling around where they have all the champions and all the competitors all in this, conference room with Dana White and Joe Rogan in there. And Conor McGregor is antagonizing every single person, every weight class that has a championship belt. He's talking smack to them. And, Matt Cerrone and Chad Mendes, obviously, he talks about him. And we'll play the comments for you on another day, but he mentioned that pretty much Conor McGregor mentioned that he makes other fighters rich and that he's gonna destroy the featherweight division after he destroys Jose Aldo at the upcoming UFC fight December 6th. It's gonna be a very great fight, a fight that we wanted to see a couple months ago, and it didn't happen. The hype surrounding it was absolutely amazing. It was crazy, and it's going to be just as crazy heading up to it here in the next couple weeks. So we're going to keep an eye on that. Conor McGregor's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of athlete, I think, that we see in the UFC. He has the skill set. He's so fast. He can strike so hard, and he's very unpredictable. And that's a great combination to have in the UFC, especially when you're fighting, world-class athletes who, are great at what they do in the ring, in the octagon. So we're definitely looking forward to that here on the Coach's Corner podcast, and then after that we'll talk about it much more as soon as it occurs. So on the football side of things today, I joined my good friend Coach Les on the Coach Les Show, Caliwood Radio, Fox Sports Radio, today to discuss the outlook of the Denver Broncos franchise. And what I'm talking about is last week we saw something that was very shocking. Obviously, the Broncos fell against the Colts a couple weeks ago and lost. Obviously weren't undefeated anymore, 7-1 at that point. Took on the Kansas City Chiefs, and Peyton Manning came into the game, with question marks that he wasn't fully healthy. Obviously, a rib issue, and then obviously we were told there was a foot issue, which later on was revealed to be a partially torn plantar fascia, which doctors have said to be more painful than a fully torn plantar fascia, which they say a fully torn one provides more relief than a partially torn plantar fascia, which doesn't make sense to me, but the medical gurus in the world said that is the reality of the situation. And so Peyton Manning came into the last game 3 yards away from the all-time passing yards record, and he got it. His first pass attempt was actually picked off. It was an interception to start the game off. It was very, very frustrating to see. He finally got the record on a 4-yard out route to Ronnie Hillman, and he moved over Brett Favre, and he's now number one on the all-time pass yards mark in the NFL. He continued to go out there, after his first interception. You could just tell he could not set his feet. He didn't look right. Something looked very off with Peyton Manning, and he couldn't set his feet and throw. And I think that was the biggest indicator for a lot of the fans. A lot of the fans were calling for them to put Brock Osweiler in, and I was one of those guys. And I could tell Peyton didn't look healthy. Peyton honestly couldn't step back. He couldn't set his feet to throw, and you could tell that his foot was bothering him. Yet Gary Kubiak kept him in anyway, and which he said later in the press conference, he shouldn't have even played that game. game. So now Peyton Manning is going to be out for an unknown amount of time. He's going to go through rehab and treatment for a partially torn plantar fascia. And so with that, Brock Osweiler, the backup quarterback for the Denver Broncos, will start against Chicago this Sunday in Chicago. Going to be a very true test. Obviously your first career start as an NFL quarterback. You've been learning behind Peyton Manning for years. I went on to Coach Les's show today to talk about this, and we talked about what's our expectation, regarding Brock Osweiler. And the thing that I told him is I'm coming into this game right now with zero expectations. Obviously, the first career NFL start, there's going to be that nerve to it. Obviously it's a big thing for a lot of players. It could go really well. It could go really bad. We'll just have to wait and see. But, what I told Coach Les is I said, this first game, you don't come into the game with very, very high expectations. Don't come into the game expecting he's going to throw for 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no picks, and he's going to lead us to win. It's a learning process. It's a big adjustment. So Brock Osweiler starting is very big. It's very new for the Denver Broncos. I do believe, however, Denver will operate better under center through the offense, and obviously Osweiler's way more mobile than Peyton Manning, so he can actually carry out the bootlegs, which I think makes him effective. And as we saw when he came in after Peyton Manning threw 4 interceptions and actually got benched in the third quarter, and Brock Osweiler came in, we saw that. Brock Osweiler was actually grabbed by Justin Houston, one of the best pass rushers in the NFL in the Kansas City Chiefs, and he escaped him. And he rolled out and he threw a touchdown to Andre Caldwell. And it was very impressive to see. Obviously I've been a big fan of Brock Osweiler. I think he's got a lot of talent and a lot of poise and just a lot of, the ceiling's high. He's got a ceiling that he can reach and eventually surpass. And it all starts this Sunday against Chicago. Obviously a lot riding on this game as John Fox, the head coach of the Chicago Bears, is going to be going up against his former team that he coached last year in the Denver Broncos. Adam Gase, the offensive coordinator, has rejuvenated Jay Cutler's career down there in Chicago, which is exciting to see. And a lot of times people, a lot of people will question Jay Cutler and hate on Jay Cutler and say he's a baby, he's not tough. But, to be honest with you, I've always been a Jay Cutler fan. I always think the guy's tough. Obviously, you're tough enough. You got to play in the NFL, take the hits that you do. He was one of the most hit quarterbacks in the National Football League in the last 5 years. And, he's been dealing with injuries, but I think he's in a system now, and he's under the tutelage of Adam Gase, where the quarterback position is a lot easier for Jay Cutler, and he's having a tremendous year, and he's thriving really well in the system. Obviously, the bummer is that Matt Forte is not healthy right now. He's got a knee injury. Eddie Royal's banged up. Alshon Jeffrey's banged up. Obviously, they have Martellus Bennett, who is a threat at the tight end position. It'll be a matchup problem for the Denver Broncos. Obviously, tight ends are kind of the one guys that get a lot of success in the passing game. You have TJ Ward having to cover tight ends. He's done a lot better in pass coverage this year, but it's still a matchup problem. We're going to see if Alshon Jeffrey will play. Aqib Talib comes back from suspension. Chris Harris is back and ready. Obviously DeMarcus Ware is still out with back spasms. Him and Peyton Manning did not make the trip to Chicago. They'll rest and they'll go through treatment. Shaq Barrett will start in place for DeMarcus Ware. Shane Ray will give them some relief here from time to time. And I think this Denver Broncos defense is going to play angry and very motivated this week. And then obviously we're going to see what Brock Osweiler has to do. So very excited about that. And like I told, Coach Les, don't come into this with a lot of expectations. We're going to see how it goes. If he plays really well, great. We can kind of set a little measuring stick for, where he is currently. And then, essentially, Brock Osweiler right now is playing for his contract. He's in his final year of his contract. He'll be a unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. It's, actually, he'll be restricted, free agent. So Denver is going to have to make him an offer. And right now, essentially, he's playing for a contract. And I think he's going to step up to the challenge. I liked what I saw from him in preseason against Seattle's number 1 defense that they had. He's got a lot of poise, a lot of intangibles, a lot of upside that, myself and a lot of other Broncos fans are looking at. Which leads me to my next point. The question was asked if Peyton Manning is, truly hurt, and if Brock Osweiler comes in and plays so well, phenomenally well, Do they continue to sit Peyton Manning when Peyton Manning gets healthy? And this is the question that I'm really struggling with. I don't know. I truly do not know. I do believe that right now, obviously, if you look at it, the Denver Broncos offense has been struggling big time. They haven't been able to move the ball. They haven't ever found consistency in the run and pass game. You have a quarterback who's not really that mobile, who poses a threat on the ground. And so teams are wanting to try to force Peyton Manning to pass, which they have done. And so with Brock Osweiler, you have a kind of a pick your poison. You know, Brock Osweiler executes the bootleg really well. He can run the ball, and he provides another element to the Denver Broncos offense that they can't really have with Peyton Manning. So I think we can truly see a true Kubiak kind of system this week against Chicago. But the debate was if Brock Osweiler comes out and plays absolutely phenomenal for the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning eventually gets healthy, do they start Peyton Manning again over Brock Osweiler with Brock playing as well as he has, if that's the very case there? And to me, that's hard, and it's a slippery slope. You know, obviously this is Peyton Manning's last year. Peyton Manning should very well retire after this season. I don't know if he will, but that's the consensus, and that's what a lot of people suggest he should do. They say he doesn't have it anymore. I love Peyton Manning to death. We'll still have to see. You know, I think when Peyton Manning's healthy and he's on, he's deadly. He's the deadliest guy in the NFL outside of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. I think that it's going to be a very interesting, next couple of months here for the Denver Broncos and for the future of Peyton Manning. If Brock Osweiler is playing, if I'm the general manager, John Elway, president of operations, if Brock Osweiler plays absolutely phenomenal and puts up numbers for this offense, helps the defense out by keeping them off the field, I do believe that Brock Osweiler will start the remainder of the season, and Peyton Manning will have to finish his career on the bench. However, people are saying, if he's healthy and he comes back, then Peyton Manning's obviously going to start, which at this point, you can't really falter that. You can't really disagree with that. Peyton Manning's Peyton Manning. He's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. It's obviously evident, and that will never, ever, ever be questioned. And so with that, you just kind of have to hope that, obviously Peyton Manning gets healthy, and when he does get healthy, hopefully he can come back and perform at the level that he is always, used to been playing. And hopefully Brock Osweiler, in his absence, steps up and makes the plays that he was drafted for. So very exciting. The Broncos take on the Chicago Bears this weekend in Chicago, early morning kickoff game. All that and much live on CBS. And so, to our next point, we're going to jump into the NBA world, where the Golden State Warriors are off to a 14-0 undefeated start. They look absolutely unstoppable. They just beat the Chicago Bulls tonight. They kind of came back in that one. They were down 10 at one point, and they eventually came back and won it by a few. Steph Curry's been playing phenomenal. Obviously, I think the early candidate for the MVP right now of the NBA is Steph Curry once again. He's been playing absolutely phenomenal. Him and Klay Thompson, the Golden State Warriors. Andre Iguodala has been playing solid. He's had a very underrated year so far. And that's the kind of guy that Andre Iguodala is. He's a solid, underrated guy who gets the job done defensively most of the night, and then he has his offensive nights. So the Warriors are 14-0. The next game that they have is on the road on Sunday against the Denver Nuggets on ESPN, in a game where they're likely, obviously they're the favorite to win. And then on Monday they take on the Los Angeles Lakers in LA, essentially what could be a home game for them, being in California, and just due to the success and the bandwagon that Golden State has exhibited lately, we could very well see the Warriors start out 16-0 on the year, which hasn't happened in a long time in the NBA. And a lot of people are saying, can these guys win 72 games or more that the Chicago Bulls did back in the day with Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and them? I don't know. It's very possible, but they're playing phenomenal ball, and they showed that, like last night they were down 23 points to the Clippers. They came back and won, and they just show that they can still do that. They can come down from adversity and they can play really well. And you have to tip your hat off. They're doing all this without Steve Kerr, their head coach, being on the side, on the court. Obviously Luke Walton's their interim head coach, but the Warriors have been playing phenomenal, and it doesn't look like they're going to stop anytime soon. They have two very favorable games, these next two games, on the road in Denver and on the road in Los Angeles, and I think they do go 16-0, and I think they're in the question for, can they top the 72 win mark? and an 82-game season. So with that, they'd only have to lose 10 games this entire year in order to match that, and they have to win out. However, it's the NBA. Things can change. Things can get really, really crazy. Some teams can find the competitive nature. Trade rumors of Kevin Durant or Kevin Durant signing with the Golden State Warriors has been talked about this week. It's just a big rumor, but they said the reality of what would happen if that were the case is very, very, very scary for the rest of the NBA. So, they're playing really well. Obviously, defending champions. Steph Curry's playing like a defending MVP, and I think he's going to win that award again if he keeps it up here. He's breaking records along the way. So it's crazy to see a guy like that, and a team like that playing so well and doing so well and just looking unstoppable. So we haven't seen this in the NBA in such a long time. And on our next front, obviously, we're going to look at the Cleveland Cavaliers. And it's not necessarily for how they're performing. It's more so of a recent story and an allegation that just came out saying that J.R. Smith choked a 19-year-old teenager in New York City, a 19-year-old who was still in high school at around the time of 4 a.m. And in my head, I'm wondering, why is a supposed 19-year-old who's still in high school on a school night out past 4 a.m.? And why is he in an area where obviously supposedly J.R. Smith was? From what I've read, there's not too much substance to this accusation. But it's being looked at, it's being investigated, and we'll find out a lot more information here soon about that. So hopefully the Warriors can keep the pace up, and it's going to be exciting to see how this goes here in the long run. And so on a couple of final notes before we actually end the show, we're going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, who were undefeated this week prior to Monday Night Football when they took on the Houston Texans. The Texans came out and actually won 10-6, and they made some very impressive plays on defense with Kevin Joseph, the rookie cornerback, and Quentin Demps, safety for the Houston Texans, made tremendous plays in the fourth quarter, obviously breaking up a pass on third down. And then on a fourth down play, Quentin Demps came in and forced a fumble on an A.J. Green catch, and they recovered it, and Houston won. And the main storyline that obviously, the Cincinnati Bengals lost and are no longer undefeated, but the main storyline, the drama that we've been hearing all week in the sports media world was that Andy Dalton was upset with the comments that J.J. Watt mentioned after the game, and where J.J. Watt said, our goal was to come out here and make the red rifle look like the red Ryder BB gun. And Andy Dalton took offense to the comment because obviously Andy Dalton has red hair, and he read the whole thing, in a way that was offensive to him, and made a big deal out of it with the media, in which a lot of people are looking at him like telling him he needs to grow thicker skin. Chris Carter said it best. He said, if you're letting a comment like that get to you, then people are going to have a field day with you. With me in high school, what I used to do is I used to look up the opponent that I was playing, the wide receivers that I was covering. I'd look at their name on Max Preps. I'd look at their number that they had, that they were on the field. And what I would do is I'd search for them on social media. I'd get to know everything I can about them, and I'd talk trash to them. I'd ask them who their sister was. I'd research who their sister was on Facebook or anything. I'd try to find anything incriminating on social media, and I would use it against them. I'd bring it up during the game, and I'd get in their head. Teams are going to start doing that now with Andy Dalton. They're going to start, chirping at him about, obviously, if he's really sensitive about his red hair. Teams and players who thrive on talking trash to, get into the head of their opponent, they're going to do a very great job with Andy Dalton, because obviously it's apparent that Andy Dalton doesn't have thick skin at all. Obviously, the AFC South right now is an absolute wreck with the Colts, the Jaguars, and the Texans. It's very unbelievable. Obviously the Texans right now are sitting up at top. The Jacksonville Jaguars are, in the race, and so are the Colts. So it's going to be one of those divisions where you have the possibility of a team who is not winning 500% of their, 50% of their games. They're not above 500, or they're not at 500. Will eventually be below 500. We'll have a playoff team who will make the playoffs below 500, sadly enough. And this year in the NFL, the record is the fact that the number of winning teams this year is not that much, in terms of record. There's not that many teams who have a tremendous winning record here and that are blowing people away. So that's very big. So which leads me to my next point. Obviously, someone who's playing really big right now is the New England Patriots. Tom Brady's playing well. Rob Gronkowski, LeGarrette Blount's playing really well, stepping up for Dion Lewis, who is out for the rest of the year after tearing his ACL, in which I definitely send my condolences to him and my prayers, because obviously that I tore my ACL, and it's not fun. It's one of the most tragic, one of the most depressing, one of the hardest realities you have to live with after you tear your ACL. You're going to face an uphill battle and a lot of inner adversity, questioning whether you can come back or not. The mental barrier that is put in place, after you tear your ACL as an athlete is very big, and it's very hard to overcome. So definitely want to send our well wishes to Dion Lewis out there. And then LeGarrette Blount stepping in for him. Obviously with Julian Edelman, who broke his foot against the New York Giants, and the Patriots actually won on a last-second field goal against the Giants this past weekend. It's gonna be an adjustment for them. Who's gonna step up in absence of Julian Edelman, who catches a high majority of Tom Brady's passes outside of Rob Gronkowski? And the answer here is Danny Amendola, a guy who they brought in a few years ago, anyways, to be an impact player for the New England Patriots. Is gonna have that time where he relishes in the role that Julian Edelman has right now. He's gonna get more opportunity, more run to do things, and I think Danny Amendola is going to be one of those guys you want to pick up on your fantasy team. Tom Brady's playing absolutely phenomenal football right now, and the New England Patriots look hard to stop. Obviously the Denver Broncos take on the Chicago Bears this weekend, and then next weekend on Sunday Night Football, the New England Patriots have to travel to Denver to take on that crazy tough defense down there, the number one defense in the NFL, the Orange Crush. That's all next week. So it gets a little tougher for the New England Patriots. Obviously, Julian Edelman is one of the most versatile wide receivers in the game, slot receivers. He's so quick. He's so versatile. He's a multi-threat weapon. He can catch punts. He can even play safety. They've put him at safety a few times. They've got him returning kicks. And anytime he gets the ball on a punt return or a kick return, he always has the chance to take it for a score, which he's demonstrated throughout the years. And Denver's had a hard time containing him. So obviously the question mark is how will his absence affect the New England Patriots offense? Obviously, they got two tight end sets in Scott Chandler and Rob Gronkowski, who are playing absolutely phenomenal right now, putting up great numbers, and they're hard to stop. They're hard to game plan against as a defensive coordinator. You look at it, it's a matchup nightmare, because if you double team Rob Gronkowski, you have Scott Chandler, who's proven he can make plays. You've got guys like Danny Amendola, Brandon LaFell at the wide receiver position, who could have a breakout game at any moment. And then if your run defense is not disciplined, you've got a big guy like LeGarrette Blount, who could run all over you. And if you want to ask, about that, ask the Indianapolis Colts about how to stop LeGarrette Blount, and they will not have an answer for you. So it's going to be a very interesting week in the NFL. I'm actually going on the B&B podcast hosted by David Boreanaz and Joey Vendetta down there in California. I'm going to be on it tomorrow, which would be Saturday the 21st, and I'm very, very excited about it. I'm a big fan of David Boreanaz. Grew up, watching the TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where he played a character named Angel. Ended up watching the spin-off TV series called Angel that had Boreanaz, and obviously I've been a very, very big fan of the TV show Bones, where Boreanaz stars as the main character, Seeley Booth, an FBI agent. So to be on the radio with them, to be on their podcast, which is very popular in the sports world, you go to play.it. It's one of the most popular sports podcasts out there. To be a guest on that, I'm very honored and humbled, and the whole reason I got into podcasting actually and talking about it was after I had my ACL surgery, I became depressed and I did not know what to do. I was physically incapable of doing anything because my quadricep muscle shut down, and it was easy to get discouraged. It was easy to be depressed because I wasn't myself. I couldn't do the things I would do. I went nuts not having anything to do. So I found their podcast. I found the B&V podcast. I saw them tweet about it a few times. So I went there and I actually listened to it when I was probably at one of my most depressed states of my life, and it immediately cheered me up, dude. It got me laughing. It brought a lot of excitement and joy, and I was able to just kind of escape my reality of the fact that I was incapable of doing anything, and it inspired me to do my own podcast. So I reach out and I listen to every episode. They're great guys. Joey Vendetta, Drew Ferrante, and David Boreanaz is on the B&V podcast. I look forward to being on there tomorrow. I will share this segment with all of you here on the next episode. I do have my good friend Tomas Edwards joining me once again on the Coach's Corner podcast. We're going to talk a lot about just some fun life experiences. It was a great episode. We had him on last week. We talked about, memories growing up. Got a lot of great feedback on that. So obviously the Coach's Corner podcast is about sports, life, and everything in between. And, it's a very blessing to, be able to use this platform to reach out to all of you guys who listen. I'm very thankful for my listeners. I'm very thankful for my followers who, follow the show, who provide me with feedback. So, if you're honestly ever interested in being a guest on the Coach's Corner podcast, send me a message, tweet me, message me on Facebook, message my email, go to CodyWork18.com and click the Contact Me tab and reach out to me. And, tell me your name, number, what you want to talk about. And then we'll get you on the podcast. We'll have you here on the Coach's Corner podcast. And, if there's a specific topic you want me to talk about and cover, then, send those suggestions to me too on Twitter at Coach's Co Podcast or at CodyWork18 on Twitter. And then go to www.CodyWork18.com and, click on the right hand corner, Coach's Corner podcast, click the link and then click subscribe. And whenever a show is uploaded, it'll be automatically put into your iTunes phone or on your computer within 5 minutes of upload, and you will always have access to it. The show automatically uploads the track to YouTube, and you can go to CodyWork18.com YouTube channel and subscribe there, and you can always get the podcast on there or on the Spreaker channel as well. So I'm very thankful for my audience, and I truly hope to grow it to a bigger audience, even more than what it is right now one day. I'm very thankful for the loyal listeners, and I look forward to having you guys on the podcast. And until next time we meet again, this is Cody Rourke on the Coach's Corner podcast. Have a great evening. The following episode is available on the iTunes store under Coach's Corner podcast with Cody Rourke. Go to CodyWork18.com, click on Coach's Corner podcast in the right-hand corner, click on the link provided below the image, and click subscribe. Anytime an episode is uploaded, it will be automatically put into your phone or your iTunes within 5 minutes of upload. Be sure to follow the Coach's Corner podcast on Twitter at Coach's Co Podcast and be up to date with the latest news and the latest media on CodyWork18.com.